Greetings, greetings, greetings. You are now tuned into the vault. Trust Christian, own nothing, control everything. Just want to thank you for tuning in live, listening to replay. Always appreciate everybody that tunes in live, listens in the replay. This is the vault, episode 644. Consistency is key. Definitely wanted to do this episode for trustees. This is one where you may catch some of the content going in and in doing our best to provide the value of how to be consistent and how families, when it comes to trusteeship, can be more persistent. Be more consistent. A lot of trustees reach out to the board and they say this is one of their biggest challenges that they have to overcome. So we're here to address the consistency issue and really share with trustees best practices. It's ultimately that's what it comes down to. And so the easiest way to talk about it is to address some of the issues that we see that trustees have sometimes. So you all can see if this is a key attribute in yourself and you can correct it possibly. So consistency. Consistency, we were talking to a senior trustee, and when what happens is when you're in an environment where you have to do minutes or you have to record things, sometimes people just don't record things. And so it's important to make that a priority. We were talking about it on the line. Why? Because your successor trustees 50 years from now or 2 or 3 generations from now can read your minutes, quote unquote, the minutes of the estate, and see what you were thinking. If you write long minutes, if you write short minutes, they can see how detailed your minutes were. We only have a certain amount of minutes here on the planet, so the trust has a certain amount of minutes under your stewardship. And under your stewardship, there are best practices. Now, interestingly enough, we were talking to a senior once again, and they were like, well, you can do, what is that? You can do Robert's rules for your meetings. The thing about it is, everybody's not as sophisticated and not as rigid, and there's no one way to do everything. But it's a fairly consistent senior level, international board level meeting conversation. So that's how that works. Okay, we have the what they call Robert's rules. It's been around for over 100, well, at least 50 years. So, alrighty. Consistency is key. Consistency is when trustees they make the time to do the work, but you got to make the time to plan the work. So a lot of trustees will do the work for sure. Definitely, a lot of trustees are hardworking people. Shout out to all the trustees. At the end of the day, though, it's called Think and Grow Rich. You have to think smart. You have to think, not just do. It's not just about doing, it's about thinking. It's about coming up with solutions to problems. It's about finding teams, finding people that strengthen your weaknesses. It's about finding out what are your strengths and weaknesses. Consistency is key. Trustees, they say, "Oh man, I'm taking a break." How you taking a break from your family estate? That shows you the level of stewardship that you're at. There is no what level of stewardship am I at, Trust Christian? What level of trusteeship am I at? You're at the level that you work for in trusteeship. Traditionally, if you are a trustee, you are the full time trustee. If you're the first trustee, you're the full time trustee. Some trustees think that they can negotiate having a job over serving their family estate. Consistency is key. The more you serve your family estate, the less time you have to serve other family names. We were even thinking about recently, as some our mentor told us early in the early days of trusteeship. He said, "Trust Christian, just to let you know, people in trust we only deal with people in trust. If we don't, if you're not in trust, we either don't do business with you or we buy you out. People are liabilities in businesses. In businesses, they got human capital and they got financial capital. The human capital is just as volatile as the financial capital. So we got the human capital aspect of it. And what value do you bring to the family estate? See, this is where people say, oh, I'm worth $100 billion. You are worth whatever you say you're worth. At the end of the day, what value have you brought to the family estate? That's a different story. You're worth what you say you worth, but the family estate needs you to actually generate cash flow. And sometimes that can be through a business, sometimes that can be by serving other families in various different capacities. So let's talk about it. How are we serving the family estate? How are we consistently serving the family estate every single day? People are taking breaks on their family estate. Then you already know what the numbers are going to look like. You already know what the business is going to look like. If you're taking breaks on the business is going to take breaks on you. If you're taking breaks on the family estate, if it doesn't have the financial capacity or infrastructure at that point, it could definitely, we could say that it won't be able to take care of you. So it's, if you're first gen, you really can't say that the family estate's going to take care of you. You're taking care of the family estate, putting the infrastructure together, putting the pieces together, putting the structure together, putting the organization together, putting the network together, all the various hard work lifting things. And people say, oh, trust Christian and Vault, why are you saying it this way? We remember when our mentors told us not to get into it. Said Trust Christian. Most people get enamored with this information. We sat on a live recently and saw it. Consistency comes from commitment. If you're committed, you're going to do the work. You're going to make the hard decisions. Hard decisions aren't necessarily new decisions all the time. Sometimes they're just consistent decisions. Consistent decisions. We're doing weekly meetings regardless of anything. We're going to have 52 meetings this year, rain, sleet, summer, or shine. Whoever decides to show up, that's what it's going to be. But we'll have a conference line, and we'll be someone will be running it because they've stepped up and said, I have the ability to be available for 52 weeks in a year, or I have the availability to be available for once a month. And what happens is you build continuity. Consistency of commitment builds continuity. So if you're looking for continuity, if you're looking for consistency, that's what's going to happen. Just having people put a schedule together, saying this is our schedule as a team. Well, if this is our schedule as a team, we're not mad when people show up or don't show up. We have no emotions tied to that now. Right. Here we go. How are you consistently getting outside your comfort zone? How consistent are you doing that? We got trustees that will literally stay inside their comfort zone at times, and it's like, well, trustees, just to let you all know that if you're in your comfort zone, you will not. It, growth is outside the comfort zone. That's the reality. So growth is outside the comfort zone. Okay, growth is outside the comfort zone. All right. What else? Well, if growth is outside the comfort zone, consistency in practicing programming yourself, consistency and study habits. Trustees would ask, well, how much time do is it going to take for me to dedicate to this? If you dedicate small amounts of time, the bigger amounts of time are easier because you're consistently just enjoying the actual work itself. People say, oh, what are the consistent things, the keys that I need to do? If you're doing the minutes and you're being consistent with minutes, That's a great thing. Okay. But what if you're doing maintenance with no capital generation? Okay, then there is an importance to bring in capital. And so when we're talking about the family estate in general, there's various components to it. So it's actually more than one moving part. You would think that the moving parts are very simple, but remember, people get into trusteeship and they say they're talking about getting the Ferrari, and now they wonder why it's going 100 miles an hour in 2 seconds. Because that's what they say. I want to get in a Ferrari, Trust Christian, but I can barely afford it. Maybe they can afford it. Oh, okay, I can afford it. You can afford the Ferrari payment, right? Right. So you're gonna get in and test. You didn't even test drive it yet. You want to know how you know you didn't test drive it yet? Because you're not in trusteeship. When you're in trusteeship, you're test driving the actual vehicle. You can build consistency and the right habits. It was interesting because even in business now, when we talk to entrepreneurs, sellers, or otherwise, ladies and gentlemen, not much gets done through the internet. When we say that, we're saying that there is an offline component to building a lot of ventures, whether that's businesses, whether that's charities, even the work habits. Those things are not necessarily always on a computer. So diversity, ladies and gentlemen, and how are you building the work habits? Diversity in the education. Some people may not have a relevant education to consistency with trusteeship, but in all actuality, uh, consistency, if you have a quality support system, and if you don't, if you have a schedule and you keep to it, you'll be fine. Um, that's a big deal. Keeping the minutes. Uh, Understanding that there's various different parts, have setting it up. Consistency is checking your mindset. Are you thinking like an entrepreneur or are you thinking like an employee? Those are two different people. So when you have these variant of mindsets, it just changes a lot of stuff. And some people don't easily take those hats off. So some people can actually take those hats on and off, ladies and gentlemen. They can put the employee hat on, and they can put the put the entrepreneur hat on, ladies and gentlemen. And that's so important, is knowing that you actually can wear both hats. If you can wear both hats, some people can do that. When you know that, you lean into that skill set for sure. You lean into the skill set. Uh, so it's interesting, you say, "Oh, I got to lean into a skill set." Definitely, there are various different skills that we have to be good at as trustees. As a fiduciary, we were sitting in front of the trustees the other day. You got to be a fiduciary. You're gonna learn by doing. One of the mentors told us, you don't want to sit on the internet thinking you could do deals like that. You got to go out and meet people face to face, shake some hands. That's why we say, literally, we were sitting in a room with some investors recently. They told us you're 12 times more likely to get money from a financial institution or otherwise if you meet them face to face and shake their hand. I know we're living in the internet era. Of course, you can do things through the internet. No one's saying that you cannot. But here we go. We're at a very critical precipice in this internet era, which is, are people thinking that the old tried and true ways don't work anymore? And that's something that people are going to have to look at very interestingly. They're going to have to look at that. They're going to have to look at that. Going to have to look at, are we being consistent? Consistency and being able to wear multiple hats. Are we checking our mindset? How often do we do a, what do you say? How often do we do a self inventory check? This is when people could say, "Oh, I do that every now and then," or "I do it," but the best, they're almost on it daily. This is the challenge that people don't want to hear. We remember when mentors used to say that. We even still hear mentors say, "How is it someone richer than you gets up earlier than you?" It is kind of mind blowing. How is it that someone that's richer than you gets up earlier than you? Not necessarily always richer in wealth, but some people do have things that they love and they're passionate about and they get up early, so they're rich in spirit. But then we also got people that are wealthier and they get up early. We remember going to this one conference this past year, and we were at the conference, man, and we thought, we left out late, and oh, we thought we were gonna get there early the next day, and it was a few day conference, so you got to see the same people a few days, and yeah, people don't even want to know some of the best. Literally, the president of the organization was one of the like, and Trust Christian gets there early every time. So we've been trained that way. So we for sure saw the president sit in a room, walking around, doing deals, talking. So we would say it's about 7 o'clock on the West Coast. That's how you have to look at it, because if 7 o'clock on the West Coast, that means it's over 8 o'clock, it's beyond 8 o'clock plus on the East Coast, and so things are getting done already in the country, and so it's just an interesting bullet point to share with people that the president, once again stayed up super late, probably past 11, 12 o'clock that night. Definitely, we see him in there 6, 7 o'clock. Sure, some people could say, oh man, blah, blah. No, this is somebody that's managing over a $20 billion portfolio, ladies and gentlemen. That's who we know. That's who we like. Oh wow, man, this guy's really in here working And some people can say, oh man, how you got to be that rich and still working that hard? You don't even want to know. When a lot of the times that we're in rooms, it's really a lot of rooms we're in are about our servers. We don't want to say the lawyers are the servers, but we'll definitely say what you guys consider your financial professionals, your financial advisors. They're kind of like servants. They're supposed to be serving you, helping you grow your financial wealth or protect your financial wealth, or preserve your financial wealth. These are the things that they're supposed to do. If anything, it's supposed to grow the wealth, because that's what they say. But they also talk about preservation as much as they talk about growing it in our environment. So, once again, ladies and gentlemen, it's interesting. Consistency in education is critical. It's interesting because we go to conferences and we host conferences privately. It's just one of those things that we see some of the bigger conferences, they they pretty much are consistent in the time of the year that they do them. Some people are hit or miss with their content. A lot of people will say that hit or miss. If you go to different conferences, people will say, "Oh, this conference is good," or "This is not good." So you always have to kind of go to the conference yourself. But it's kind of funny because even when you see, man, it's so crazy. We were talking to someone about that the other day. And when you guys really look at like conferences, there's not too many conferences Trust Christian involved in private sectors really hosting or having out there. Like even if you went to an alternative investment conference, they're still those are still, price barrier to entry is decent. You're spending over $200-300 plus, could be $2,000. These are investment managers. They're really trying to weed out people. So that's the question, ladies and gentlemen. In trusteeship, are you okay with getting weeded out of specific pieces of information? That's what it comes down to. Are you okay with getting weeded out of it? Because that's what it's going to come down to, ladies and gentlemen. A lot of people get weeded out of the information, and that's because it's called a barrier to entry. So it sounds like some people say, oh, consistent, consistent. What if I'm consistently doing the wrong thing, Trust Christian? I got to change my habits. Well, it was interesting. We were sitting in front of pretty much, we consider this lady, she's pretty much a superwoman. She has some superpowers. She pretty much, in business, she can get done what she says she's gonna get done. She's in private equity, has high level of international tax experience, things of that nature. When you're dealing with these caliber of people, they can get things done that you may not have even thought of yet. It's so important to surround yourself with people that are smarter than you. It's interesting because we think everybody says that, oh, you find smart people, surround yourself with smart people, but people don't really know. Super teams can be built rather quickly, and super teams are important to build because if you cannot build a super team, how are you going to get super results? If you build an average team, you get average results. If you build a good team, you're going to get good results. Sure, somebody can perform up to the next level. If you build a great team, you're going to get great results. How do you describe your team? How are you looking at your team as far as the outside looking in and as well the inside looking in? How are you looking at the team? Because the team is what's going to be able to provide the support system to be consistent. We just appreciate all the trustees for tuning in live, listening to replay. Always appreciate everybody for tuning in live, listening to replay. We know a bunch of trustees that have gotten a bunch of value out of those recordings, the private recordings. If you want to get the private recordings, feel free to reach out Christian at trustchristian.com. If you want to get the private webinar recordings, it's Christian at trustchristian.com. And once again, ladies and gentlemen, trusteeship is not necessarily easy, but if you're consistent, it's not overwhelming. Some people say it's overwhelming. Why? Because you know you're not going to study. If you know you're going to study, you'll get through what's called the wall. Everybody, actually, you know what it is? We were talking to even the same individual we're thinking about right now. It's not a wall, it's actually a learning curve. And that learning curve is going to cost you in the beginning. Maybe a lot of time and a lot of energy. But as your knowledge increases, your knowledge goes down. I mean, your time commitment that goes in doesn't always have to continue to increase. So we definitely appreciate everybody for tuning in live, listening to replay. Always appreciate everybody that tunes in live, listens in the replay. This is the Vault 644. Consistency is key. It is more than key. It's a major key. So when we get trustees and they say, oh, Trust Christian, I'm having a challenge with consistency, you can create an affirmation about consistency and what consistency looks like for you. How does that consistency look for you? How does that sound for you? How does consistency feel to you? How do you feel when you consistent? What's the feelings that you get? Because a lot of trustees say, oh, Trust Christian Vote. I'm not in the right environment right now. Okay, well, we talk about clubs. We talk about uh, high-end restaurants. There was this quote that we heard when we were younger, and there's a quote from this man that says, someone asked this wealthy man, if you lost it all tomorrow, what would you do? And he said, I would go work at a high-end restaurant and listen to wealthy people speak about the trends and topics that they're doing and investing in, and I would go do those things. So I will work there for a period of time and then go do those things. And it's interesting because that's so our philosophy at the vault, but it's interesting that most people don't really know that if you go get around wealthier people, they'll let you know where they're allocating their capital. Once you know where they're allocating their capital, you can maybe ask them for the money because you know the ventures that they're giving it to, and you just go into those ventures. And that's literally how it works a lot of times, ladies and gentlemen. So we appreciate everybody for tuning in live, listening to replay. Christian at trustchristian.com. Christian at trustchristian.com. Peace and joy.